NXT starts off with the Rascals versus Gallus. This feud has started up from last week where Gallus interrupted a segment with the Rascals, basically saying that they don't want the Rascals in NXT. So they end up setting a match for this week. The Rascals end up picking up a very easy victory over Gallus. This was a really solid match, man, with the Rascals dominating a good portion of this match. Everyone looked amazing. Trey and I forgot the Trey and Zach. Yeah, Trey and Zach. I almost forgot the other member's name. Trey and Zach looked amazing. This is my first time seeing them, so I was very impressed with what I saw. All three of them with Trey, Zach, and Wesley all having very similar wrestling styles. They all looked amazing with their high-flying, fast-paced wrestling. This was a really good match, really fun. Hendry ended up making a return to NXT. Now, this time he didn't have a match, but he ended up coming out during this match, ended up jumping on commentary, saying some words, so it was nice to see him. Got a crazy loud pop when he comes out. Of course, people singing his song. So this was a really solid match. Gallus ends up taking another L, as they probably should. Don't know what the plan is, but I'm liking the Rascals on NXT. Next, get a quick segment with Ethan Page, Ava. Ethan Page is basically saying that how he needs protection and how that mentions how he's the champion, how we're in a new era. Then Minta comes in. He wants to fight Ethan Page. Of course, he still wants payback for Ethan injuring him. Ethan is frustrated because Minta keeps attacking him. Wants a shot at the NXT title, but Ava's not giving it to him because he keeps attacking Ethan Page out of nowhere in random matches. Then they go back and forth. Ava wants Ethan Page to put the title on the line. Ethan Page ends up not getting pressure, but he ends up like falling into like a trap and ends up offering to defend his title later on the show against Dante Chen. So later on the show, you get Dante Chen versus Ethan Page for the NXT Championship. Next, we get Roxanne Perez. Roxanne Perez, she cuts a promo, mentions how she feels disrespected, how she's still NXT champion, how she feels disrespected, how everyone else is getting more attention to her as she's the NXT champion, and how dominant she has become. Then you get Thea Hale. She comes out and mentions how Roxanne Perez in the promo kind of disrespected Thea Hale, saying that she's not really a challenger and how it's not going to be that hard of a victory. Thea Hale ends up mentioning how that you should understand how it feels to be the underdog. I once looked up to you and that you could keep underestimating me, but I'm going to prove you wrong very soon. Then Roxanne responds back, ends up saying that, look, the championship, being a champion, is required for grown women. You're just a little girl. And then Roxanne Perez tries to attack Thea Hale. They go back and forth, have a brawl. Thea Hale kind of gets the upper hand. She ends up putting her in a Kimura lock, but the Chase U ends up breaking it up. And that's the end of the segment there. They're building up the potential rivalry of Thea Hale and Roxanne Perez. Roxanne Perez also mentioned Julia and Stephanie Vancouver, two of the signings of WWE who will be soon on NXT. So I'm very interested to see how that plays a factor. Thea Hale most likely is not winning against Roxanne Perez. That's just not going to happen. I would like it personally, because if you want a babyface to dethrone the heel, Thea Hale isn't a bad babyface. I feel like if you was to pull the trigger on Thea Hale, it would have been like a couple months ago around like Stand and Deliver season. Now, she's still very over, but she was way more over like 4 or 5 months ago. I would have just done it if you was going to put the NXT Championship on her. But around that time, Laura Raquel was champion, so it makes sense. Yeah, I'm interested to see how the feud and the match plays out. But we all know that most likely it's either Stephanie or Julia who's going to dethrone Roxanne Perez. It's just whether or not when Stephanie or Julia are going to make their debut. Get a quick segment. Lola Vice, she's getting interviewed, mentioning at Heatwave how she lost. But then you get JC Jane, Fallon Henley, and Jasmine X. They interfere, and they're basically mocking her loss. They go back and forth, and this eventually sets up a match between Lola Vice and JC Jane later on in the show. Now we get Javon Evans versus Brooke Jensen. This is Javon Evans, of course, getting his revenge, wanting his payback from last week where Brooke Jensen ends up attacking him backstage. This was an overall solid match. Javon Evans had the majority of the offense. It was a crazy spot where on the outside, on the pad area, Javon Evans runs up to the ring apron ropes, jumps on the bottom rope from the ground, and ends up doing a springboard moonsault. That was a crazy spot he did. That was an amazing sick spot he ended up doing. That was sick. Then there was another spot where later on in the match, Brooks ended up body slamming Javon on the announce table, and then soon after he gets on a ring apron, jumps off the ring apron onto the announce table where Javon Evans was laying down. That was a very Sean Spears comes out. And he ends up getting, Brooks Jensen gets distracted. Josh Briggs tried to prevent Sean Spears from doing whatever he tried to do. Brooke Jensen ends up talking to Josh Briggs, gets distracted, which led to Javon Evans taking advantage. He ends up doing his sick cutter and ends up picking up the victory here. After the match, though, Brooke Jensen ends up attacking Javon Evans. Josh Briggs ends up stopping him, preventing him to continue to attack, and then they're playing the story of Josh Briggs being the guy that's responsible for Brooks Jensen, responsible for his actions. This leads to some turmoil where Brooks Jensen is not happy with Josh Briggs, and then Brooks Jensen wants a match next week against Josh Briggs in a no disqualification match. So next week we're going to get Brooks Jensen versus Josh Briggs. Next, we'll get a segment with Tony D'Angelo and Charlie Dempsey. Charlie Dempsey is mentioning what he did last week with kidnapping Damon Kemp, and he ends up alluding to a situation that he might have. He ends up saying, hypothetically, what if someone was to saw what he did to Damon Kemp? And Tony D'Angelo ends up just staying away. He's like, look, I don't want no issues with it. I'm not involved in this. He basically like, look, that's your own issue. Charlie was trying to get some advice from Tony D'Angelo what to do if a woman was to see him. Tony D'Angelo ends up steering clear of that. And we all know the woman he's referring to is Ren Sinclair, which later on in the show, Ren Sinclair ends up approaching No Quarter Catch Rule and ends up saying that, look, I won't tell your secret if you put me in the group. This is very interesting and very weird. I like the idea. I'm just confused on No Quarter Catch Crew because they're a weird mix of people, because it's like they're supposed to be a heel faction, but they're not acting like heels because Tavion and Miles don't really act. The only heel in the group is Charlie, and then Ren Sinclair is not a heel at all. She's a clear babyface. So it's very weird. It's like they're trying to be a heel faction, but they have a bunch of baby faces around Charlie. So it's a very weird dynamic. So I don't hate it because Ren isn't doing anything anyway, so this gets her TV time, but it's a very weird pairing in my opinion. But I don't mind it because anything to save that faction, but I just kind of don't get the idea of where it's going. It just feels very random in my opinion. Next, we get Ethan Page and Dante Chen. Ethan Page ends up defeating Dante Chen, of course, in a decent match. After the match, though, Mensah comes in, tries to attack Ethan Page, but Ethan Page gets the upper hand. He leaves the ring. After he leaves the ring, Mensah gets back up, attacks Ethan Page, gets back in the ring. I forgot what move he did, but he had some move, and then he ends up pinning Ethan Page. He ends up doing a pin like a 1, 2, 3 count, the crowd chants, and he ends up pretending like, I pinned him and I deserve a shot at Ethan Page NXT title. And then they're teasing that potential match coming up between Ethan Page and Mensah. Because they ended up having a segment where Ethan Page was getting followed by a camera, and they was like, how you got pinned by Aura. He, of course, is denying it. So they're teasing to build up a potential NXT championship match between Mensah and Ethan Page pretty soon. Next, we get Tatum Paxley versus Izzy Dame. During this match, Wendy Chu ends up coming out, and she ends up coming out with the doll. Tatum Paxley picked up the victory, surprisingly. She picked up the victory. After she picks up the victory, she has the head of the head that is attached to the doll, like the piece that's supposed to go with the doll. Wendy Chu and Tatum Paxley meet up with each other towards the entrance ramp, and she gives her the doll to put the head back on the doll, and then Wendy Chu leaves. But after this segment, you get Kalani Jordan and Tatum Paxley having a segment, and this is what I love. Kalani talks to Tatum, talked about how Wendy Chu was looking for her doll. Tatum addresses her, said that was my doll. Then Tatum Paxley asks Kalani that she wants to play. Kalani refused. She said, look, we're too old to be playing with dolls, but I'll hit you up later. And then she takes out, the little blonde doll that she has and replaces it with a black doll. I love this. So it looks like she's going after Kalani Jordan. This I like. This makes sense from a storyline perspective because our whole purpose of her being obsessed with Lyra was because of a championship. Kalani has a championship. This makes sense. I like this idea. I love the idea of her being this possessed, over obsessed woman with women on the NXT roster. It just has to make sense because it made no sense why she was obsessed with Izzy. I like the idea of her being obsessed with Kalani. She's not going to beat Kalani, but I like the potential of this feud of her being obsessed with Kalani Jordan. I love it. This is great. Next, we get a segment with Cedric Alexander and Ashanti Diadonis. Ashanti is trying to holler at Jakara Jade, but Mensah ends up interfering. They end up going back and forth, and this sets up a potential match for next week with Ashanti Diadonis versus Mensah next week. We'll see how that plays out. Not really interested in the feud, but this is just a match to get them on TV. We get Lola Vice versus JC Jane. This is very surprising. Lola Vice won this match very easily and very cleanly as well. This was a very quick match, which I was very shocked about. Because Jasmine Nix was on the outside. I thought JC Jane would interfere. I mean, not interfere. I thought JC Jane would get some assistance from Jasmine Nix because she was on the outside. But no, she didn't get no interference. Lola Vice picked up the victory. But after the match, Fallon Henley ends up attacking Lola Vice. JC Jane, Fallon Henley, and Jasmine Nix are all jumping Lola. Then Carmen Petrovic and Sol Ruka comes in and make the save. I'm going to be honest here. This new faction between Fallon, JC Jane, and Jasmine Nix, this is giving me Gallus vibes. And the thing is, I like all three women. All three women are talented, but they're giving me Gallus vibes in the way they're being booked, in the way of like, they're supposed to be taken seriously, but you can't take them seriously because all they do is lose. It's like, it's very hard to take them seriously when I know they're not going to win anything, because pretty soon I know they're not winning that NXT North American Championship. Not now. And then now it looks like they're going to have a 6-man tag between Soul, Carmen, and Lola with this new faction, which I don't hate, but it's kind of weird because Carmen and Soul are baby faces, but Lola isn't. So it's kind of weird. It's a very weird pairing. Don't know the direction. I'm interested, but right now this new faction with Fallon, JC Jane, and Jasmine, they're giving me Gallus vibes. And Gallus, I could care less about them, to be honest. Next, we get OTM versus the OC in a mixed 6-man tag match. Very shocked that OTM lost this match. I thought that since OTM won the tag match against the OC and then Jada Parker won the match against Micha in a street fight, I assume you just go 3-0. I assume you just make the OTM win 3-0. But the OTM to win 3-0. But they made the OC win, which was very surprising and very shocking, which I'm not mad at, but I'm very shocked that they went with the OC winning. I'm very curious to see, I'm assuming this rivalry will play out until the Great American Bash. I see no reason why for it to end now, especially with the OC winning. Since the OC won, you might as well continue the feud, have them fight into the American Great Bash, and then end it there. Now we get to the main event. Duke Hudson versus Oba Femi. Not going to speak too much on this match. Duke Hudson put up a good fight, was a very strong competitor, but Oba Femi ends up retaining his NXT championship. Only makes sense for her to retain. This overall was an okay, decent show. Nothing too major happened on the show, but I enjoyed the show overall. You guys let me know your opinions down below. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys thought. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. But yeah, that's it.